Today we're gonna be checking out a minimalist. I'm gonna say minimalist, that's what we're gonna go with. You be the judge, let me know down in the comments. A minimal home studio setup for a friend of mine, Josh Bonanno, who is a mixing engineer here in Nashville. Josh has what is probably the most accurate definition of a home studio with just the perfect selection of very tasteful gear to do exactly what he needs to do, how he needs to do it. Josh's studio is refreshing and takes it back to the channel's roots of really showing how much you can do with very minimal amounts of gear, especially with software these days. Absolutely awesome. If you want to follow Josh, I put links to him down in the description, as well as a playlist of songs that he has mixed. Give him a follow. Let me know what you guys think of his studio down below. Thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. I put links to all the gear that I use here in my studio. I also have playlists on this channel of me reviewing different gear that I have, doing different sort of use cases. We even have some videos where we are doing sessions. I know a lot of people who follow the channel follow because of these studio tours, but if you want to see some more in-depth stuff on actual different equipment or instruments, things like that, you can check that all out on the different playlists on the channel. But Sweetwater sponsors all the tours. They're a big supporter of my channel, so if you are looking to get anything, there are affiliate links down in the description. They also have a gear exchange if you're looking to sell some gear that you have and maybe replace it with some fresh new gear. But all that info and more down in the description. I appreciate you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring all these videos. Also, thank you guys for supporting the channel, liking and subscribing. 2022 was an unbelievable year, and I think 2023 is going to be pretty ridiculous. So thank you guys so much for watching, and let's go check out Josh's minimal home studio setup.
I'm Josh Bonanno. I'm a mix engineer here in Nashville.
The house is a rental.
Yeah, this house is a rental. I've been here for 4 years now since I moved to Nashville. Yeah, it's a fun little space. I mean, I obviously live here. It is my house, but at times it feels a little more like a studio and this be the lounge and whatever than actually a house. But yeah.
All right, let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's go. This is the space.
Sick. Proper home studio vibes in here.
Yeah, it's small, it's cozy.
A few guitars, or do you play as well?
Yeah, I mean, I started my whole musical journey as a guitar player, actually. So they kind of still hang around to remind me where I came from. Play as much anymore. You know, I moved to Nashville and had the idea that there's probably a lot more players who are a lot better than me. So yeah. I'll leave that to them, and that's kind of my hobby. You know, I still have some like pedals and like random paraphernalia that kind of sits around, but that's very much, I keep that behind closed doors or when I need to for the random production project or sync thing that I do here and there. The majority of work that you do in here is mixing then? Yeah, mixing is kind of the like 9 to 5, but kind of like all creatives, I feel like I kind of can't keep my hands off of, you know, other things. So I do produce. I have a couple like sync projects that are, you know, sporadic and random that when I have the free time is kind of a fun creative endeavor. So that's kind of why I have, you know, a lot of this gear sometimes is, you know, to pick up and do that occasionally when inspiration strikes. But yeah, the main workload of what I do is mixing records. When did you move to Nashville? Ooh, it's been 4 years now. October 2018. So right before, right before COVID. I got a good year or two out of Nashville before everything kind of locked down. And you started in this house? I did, actually. This is where we moved when I originally got here, so I've been here ever since. Hopefully looking to get out of it this year. A little bit of a bigger space, so maybe we'll have an update in the future. But yeah, I kind of been here, and the idea of moving after finding it sounded a lot worse than just staying here and kind of dealing with it. So spent a lot of time here and just building it out as far as what I can do with it. Again, being a rental, you know, you're kind of limited to how much you can do, but obviously a lot of treatment in here. Spent a lot of time positioning and, you know, the microphone with the RTA and balancing things out. Yeah, I live in denial, and I just push that off as long as I can, and I go, you know what, this room just sounds good. I just got lucky. You know, there's a funny aspect to that, and I talk to my friends about it a lot, where you can kind of chase that dragon like a long time. Yeah. And then there's like this point where it's like, okay, I just have to get to work. Like, it's as good as it's gonna get. And then if I have like if I have a down like time period of a day or two, I'll be like, all right, let me let me open up Room EQ Wizard again and see what I can make better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there becomes a point where it's like, okay, this is as good as it's gonna get for right now, and I have to just accept that and work with what I can. Even like, I mean, you see the cloud, like that's not doing anything up there. Like, you know, I kind of put it up there with the intention of like, okay, one day I'll like measure it and build it better, and that was just like an extra panel, and at least I have like the hooks up there to do it now. And it's a work in progress, you know? It gets to a point too where I'm almost scared to touch it because everything works. I like the work I'm doing in here. People like the work. I'm getting paid, translates well, and it sounds great. And it's comfortable working too, so. The idea of kind of remaneuvering stuff is a little scary at this point.
Yeah.
To like rip it all up and be like, oh, okay, well it doesn't work and I can't put it back the way it was now.
Do you know the size of this room?
It's like 11 by like 15 or something, I think.
Really?
12 maybe.
Yeah.
It's a little deceiving because this is like, there's a fair amount of treatment up on these front walls.
Yeah, and they're
like those
thick.
Corners are like almost 2 feet deep or 3 feet
Yeah.
or something. And these panels on the front wall are also like a solid, you know, maybe like foot off, and there's a little bit of gaps and whatnot. So it is a little deceiving. It's a little bigger and the couch kind of eats up some room in the back.
Yeah, that's always a little bit of a rub with the studio design is
Yeah.
you gotta have somewhere for people to get comfortable, or even just a place to sort of separate yourself from sitting here like, I need to sit down.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the hard part in a small room too, which is why I have a lot of treatment up front, because I wanted to have that space in the back to have a couch or something, so I didn't want to fill the back wall too much with a ton of depth. So it's a give and take. And again, like all the panels, like it's the give and take of it feeling smaller because a lot of the panels are deep and they're off the wall a little bit, so that again, it's better for the sound.
Sure.
But the takeaway with that is that it's small, it's tight.
And did you make all these?
I did make all of them.
Can I have you sort of give me a rundown on just like your rig?
Sure. Yeah, rig. I mean, I'm a Pro Tools guy, as expected for that.
Ooh, a narrow tracks guy too.
Yeah, narrow mix window guy. Everybody kind of makes fun of me because I
Whoa.
do spend a decent amount of time in mix window, which is apparently
course.
a no-no. I don't.
What?
people-
No, that's nonsense.
Everybody tells me I'm crazy for that.
It's nonsense.
I mean, I'll give away the secret right now that honestly, I don't really use any of this on the day-to-day.
Really?
I use it to record, you know, when I'm producing here and there. I like to use all of it, but you know, I'm working just on so many things at once usually that I got to be able to switch back and forth, and you know, kind of using the analog stuff. It doesn't always allow that kind of speed to do recalls in that way. So yeah, I mean, the main thing I'm using every day is just like the Apollo. Obviously, I've had this for like 5 or 6 years at this point. That's kind of the workhorse. The Dangerous, which is obviously the controller up there. I get a lot of questions, people asking about kind of what that thing does, and that's just a monitor controller. So I have like my main Pro Tools input coming here, and the trick that why I keep these things around and I like having a monitor controller is because I have my main Pro Tools input here, so like what I'm mixing, and then here is actually the rough mix, so I can reference back and forth,
Yep.
you know, kind of seamlessly. And then I have Spotify coming in here, so I could, if I want to listen to Spotify or the computer or the audio from the computer, I could do that without having to like use plugins, or I'm really just trying to not have to manage between like a million windows all the time on my computer.
Yeah.
I do that, and then it also opens up if I only have the one set of speakers currently, but if for some reason I wanted to put, you know, I have a pair of Venice 10s in the other room. If I wanted to put those up, I could do it that way, or put a sub or whatever. Then you obviously can do mono. And I like that workflow. Again, probably a little redundant as far as things go.
What I love about the
kind of how I had it
Dangerous
for years, so.
is that it's just a remote control. You got a
Yes.
Ethernet. It's not all the audio cables going into the
Correct.
back.
It's a relay.
So ugly when they do that.
The one thing I will say about the Dangerous is that it's all analog only, which is like a little limiting. So you can't have like digital ins or digital outs or whatever. But for the price point of what that is currently, it's still probably one of the more affordable monitor controllers that don't like sound bad. Like I had the PreSonus like Central Station for like a lot of years, and it was like game changing when I updated to this, and I was like, whoa, I didn't realize that was doing such a color like thing to my speakers. And it's great because again, to me, this is more important of having like this control like right in front of me than the like 5% audio quality that it was. Because I'll close my eyes and I'll just be right here with volume and
Yeah.
you know, referencing and whatever.
Also, you're a mixer, you know, like instead of, you know, maybe the Presonus is better for a songwriter or, you know.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, something like that.
Something like that. I mean, again, you know, and that we can get into the like speakers and whatnot now, but like the sound anchors were like a huge thing for me when I did that. Like again, it's a 5-10% like quality increase, but you know, for what I'm doing, I need that.
I would say it's even bigger, at least for in my scenario. The sound anchors brought such a, it felt like I was using different speakers.
Yeah, I always joke in a sort of dark way that if a tornado ever rolls through Nashville again, I'm just gonna go stand under my sound anchors.
Yeah.
Because those things, they're not going anywhere and they're works of art. Those are awesome. And then the Barefoot 01s, the footprints, I've been on those for maybe 3 years now or so.
Those are really nice.
And they're really great. I love them. I think for the price point of what they are, being like a 3-way kind of closed box, you know, sort of design, they sound great. They go really low. I'll probably update soon to something else, but I just know them and love them. Yeah, I've never really had much issue with them. They don't require a sub. They go super low.
Yeah.
I mean, in a small room like this, it's a little hard, which again is why I've kind of spent so much time trying to tune it and get it as much as possible. And the downfall of the Barefoots is that you don't have much control over them as far as like DSP or anything on the back. So you can't roll off low end. Like you only really get like 1 dB increments as far as volume goes. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 with that, but as far as sound quality goes and translation, I mean, I think they're great. The magic of these is they do go really low. Like, you don't need a sub. They extend really low, and it doesn't roll it off in like a really harsh sort of way. The only downfall of them is the crossover's a little weird because the sides are like passive radiators, so it's below 200's a little blurrier than like what I would like.
Yeah.
But
have you used these in a room that's not yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen these. I mean, I feel like everybody around town kind of has these now, like because of their price point and what they are.
What led to you getting some of this outboard gear, and why did you pick what you picked?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll admit I bought it, you know, years ago, and was mixing with it for a little while, because I wanted to, and it was fun, and it was, you know, I had the Apollo kind of with that intention, because I mean, obviously you have, you know, 8 outs, 8 ins on this thing. So yeah, I mean, I was just kind of buying stuff. This was actually kind of the first piece I got, I think, the Stam bus compressor, which, you know, when I say all to say this is all great gear, I love it all. It's just the workflow that I do nowadays is I gotta move pretty quick, and, you know, working between a million songs at once, like it doesn't make a ton of sense to be using this type of stuff. But the Stam's great. I love this thing. I mean, I've shot it out against a lot of plugins and whatnot, and it sounds, something about like the gain staging in this I think just works better than a lot of the plugins. Like a lot of the plugins, I feel like the threshold is very weird, and I don't know, so it's always worked. It's been great, and it's just one of those pieces that I know if I were to sell it, I'd be upset in a couple years, you know, if I had a bigger space or more time or whatever. So yeah, the 500 rack, to be honest, it kind of, I mean, like a lot of the sort of gear I have around here became just sort of a hobby or like a passion thing. So like all this DIY stuff, I built. Like, so these 500 series, this is like their EQs, their kind of Pultec style EQs. I have 2 of those. These are their color boxes, which we could talk about those in a second. And then that's like their compressor. It's actually like a LA 4A style compressor. And I built all those.
Oh, cool.
Which again, kind of through COVID was fun to kind of sit down and like do a new thing. And I kind of could warrant spending the money because I was like, oh, I'll use this gear. You know, it's a fun little hobby to build and learn about like the, you know, the chips and the capacitors and the resistors and all that. And then obviously you could use it as gear. So that's kind of how I got into a lot of this stuff, was mainly just out of interest in building it, really. And it's all great gear though. So I mean, the EQs, you know, those are like a Pultec style EQ. They have like an op amp in them actually, so they're like a little more, you know, colorful. They're not like a tube style Pultec like you think. They're like the solid state, real old school type thing. The color palettes, these are really cool. So each of these is a different color. So like yellow is like a 15 IPS like tape machine. This one up top is a like an old school 70s style like transformer, and then this one down here is like an op amp. So basically you could drive into them independently or, you know, one at a time, however you want to do it. And then that's just an output gain control. So you can get anything from just like subtle saturation color to full blown sort of just destruction, distortion, and they're all interchangeable. So you'll see when I pull it out for you that, you know, if I decide, okay, I'm not really using the 15 IPS tape machine, I could build a new color and put it in there. It could be like a, it could be a total decapitator style distortion, or it could be a clipper or whatever, you know? So it's really fun. It's kind of like, they kind of market them as like analog plugins almost.
Sure.
And then the other one from DIY is their OLA5, which is a really fun compressor, actually. It's somewhere between like a LA2A kind of slow, gooey thing, but can get pretty grabby at times. On a vocal is really, really nice. So if I'm ever tracking, I like to use that. The Alicia Expressor, this thing is, I don't think I'll ever sell it. It's just a Swiss Army knife of a compressor, and I got pretty close with that company a couple years back. I guess before COVID, they were doing a kind of like a tour where they were sending around their whole like rack of all the gear they have in 500 series, and a bunch of people here in Nashville got it. And I got lucky enough to kind of demo it. And then after learning about just their company and like hearing their gear, I was like, oh, I love this stuff. So I bought this, and this is like their stereo compressor essentially, but there's nothing that this thing just can't do. It's got like a warm mode that I love too. That's like changes the slew rate of the compressor somehow, but it is a saturation thing that just kind of makes it feel warmer, larger. So that thing's amazing. It does everything from just like gentle compression to absolute just destruction, crushing. It's got like negative ratios on it. It's got like a gain reduction limiter.
Cool.
Like it does really, I don't even know what that means, but
yeah,
it can do it. And then obviously these 560As are like the DBX, you know, like old school 160, like whatever kind of remakes they made in the 500 series. I actually really love those on acoustic guitar though. If I'm ever recording like acoustic, I kind of put it through and take a dB or two off and
get a little more control.
Yeah, it does a nice thing. I don't know. And then the preamps. So I have I built this as well, the Lola from Hairball. These preamps are just gorgeous. They're somewhere between like an API and a Neve type thing almost, but it's a pretty colorful one, and I love it because it's got a meter on it, which is important to me when I'm recording. Yeah. I hate so I have the cappies up here.
Yeah, no meters.
No meters, and I'm like, I don't know. And then it's got the input and the output control, which on a preamp to me is kind of necessary, that I want to hit it harder or less hard. Yeah. The cappies I do like have that. And then again, I'm not recording a ton, so this is kind of like passion project gear. I've done the thing where I've like tried running mixes through the cappies or through. Yeah. And it's fun, but there's so many plugins available now that like
a lot faster.
Yeah, do I really, need to be doing that? So, and then obviously the patch bays, and then those are kind of just residual old sort of tape decks that I have laying around that don't really have a home. But they could also be fun, and I like keeping things around like that, I don't know, if I'm bored one day, I'll record guitar into the cassette, or I just bought this little like miniature cassette thing for $10.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I'm trying to do more recording here and there, and having little things like this just feel somewhat inspiring to like have sitting around. So
sync stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the way I got into the sync thing was honestly, I moved to Nashville and I was mixing records, and I think there was a point where I sort of got bored almost to some extent, where mixing kind of almost became a desk job, that I was like, okay, I'm mixing all day and I'm not really like creating in the way that I maybe was before when I was doing a little bit more of everything. So I just had some like random demos laying around, and I kind of stumbled upon like a friend of a friend on the internet, and they were like a top liner, and they were like, hey, these like demo like instrumental things you're making are really cool, like can I sing on one of them? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a fun thing, like why not? And he put some vocals on top of it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah, I have like 3 more of them, like do you think that's let's do this? And he was like, yeah. So he put some vocals on top of it, and it just was like a fun passion thing. Like I was just bored and picked up my guitar one day and made these instrumental kind of demos to, fall back in love with music essentially. And then he put a song on top of it, and we kind of just made a whole album out of it. And then really didn't think much of it. Just was like, hey, this is cool. Like, let's just put it up on Spotify or do whatever with it. And I honestly forget how we got connected with one of those like micro licensing sync companies. Probably just through a friend here in Nashville, or knowing somebody, or knowing that's even a thing. Like I didn't really even know that was a thing. And they were like, hey, this is cool. Like you should talk to so-and-so at so-and-so. So I did, and they were interested and put it up, and really, at the end of the year, made some money from it. And then I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe I should do more of this. So yeah, again, I don't pursue that as much as maybe like some of those other people that you're talking about that have full artist projects or whatnot. It really it really stems from a place of, hey, if I pick up a guitar and have a cool instrumental demo, and I find a top liner who's interested in it, and I feel like it's a good fit, and we finish the song, then that's great. And then if we find a home for it later on a sync catalog or wherever it may be, that's awesome.
Let's talk about like your desk setup here, because this is pretty unique.
It is unique. Right before I moved to Nashville, I built this with my dad, actually.
It's beautiful.
I used to have a keyboard up here, and I recently got like a new computer and the TV and the whole thing, and I kind of like liked the cleanliness of not having the keyboard there. I also, you know, I think there's like a huge kind of movement going around now of like small desks, and like you don't want the reflections off of it. But I like having the space because I'll usually have like a notebook here and like cups, and so I like having the extra space. It's probably not the best for reflections, but it kind of works. I mean, it's, you know, not the sturdiest thing in the world, but I've had it for, you know, the past 4 or 5 years now, and it works. I almost went and got like one of those, like the Argosy that has the gear in it desk, and I felt distracting to me. I like just the clean slate of like, I don't love staring at a screen, but it's just what we have to do nowadays. So I liked as clear of sort of an access to just being in the song as possible. And it's always really important to me to keep everything behind the speakers as much as possible.
Sure.
So like, no, you know, I didn't want a screen on the desk, keep it behind the tweeters, like have them, you know, kind of the most clear. And then even like the wires kind of bother me. Like I wish there was a way to kind of hide these better. Obviously the wireless mouse and keyboard, but kind of the reality of dealing with some of that. So I like as much space and cleanliness as like even this room right now is, you know, clean for the video, let's say, but I generally keep the room pretty clean and open. I mean, that's my thing is like, I'm just about, like, I like having a comfortable space. Like I spend 12 hours a day, you know, and it's like, if it's not comfortable to me, I'm not gonna wanna sit in this room. So that's always been my very like sort of important thing, even if it's not the most well-tuned room or whatever, like it just has to be comfortable for me to sit in it, because otherwise I'm not gonna. If I'm not sitting in it, I'm not making money. So that's always been my, you know, guidelines for finding out if it works in the room or not. Like it might not be the most well-designed desk, but it brings me joy.
That's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I'm gonna put links to your stuff down in the description so people can follow you and check out some of the work you've done. You have anything that's come out recently, or you want to shout out for people that are curious on stuff you've worked on?
Yeah, I mean, follow along on Instagram, pretty active there, always updating. I've got, you know, Spotify playlists, always love kind of heroing a lot of the artists that I work with here in Nashville. So I'm always sharing and kind of just down to have, you know, communications and collaborations and chat with people. So yeah, give me a follow and I'll have a talk.
Awesome. Everyone go give him a follow, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Love it.
Peace.